Congressman Rango, Bob Jackson, and others, media columnists, and religious leaders in various parts of the country who have defended the civil and human rights of Muslims. And to you we say, and to all people we say, we extend our hands in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Talib. I appreciate very much. It is my honor to call upon our councilman Robert Jackson to make some comments, inshallah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Peace be upon you. Assalamu Alikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Robert Jackson, and I am a leader of the City Council of New York. As you know, I represent Northern Manhattan District 7. As you know, I co-chair the New York City Council's Black, Latino, and Asian Caucus. As you know, I chair the Education Committee of the City of New York. And I stand here today in all of those capacities with the Islamic Leadership Council to denounce bigotry, hatred, and Islamophobia. And I say to all of you that I read the papers and listen to the radio like everyone else. And yesterday, I read in the Daily News when it says, right next to the editorial page, Voice of the People. And I cut it out. And I said I wanted to read it here today. And I'm going to read it so everyone can hear it.
Thank you, Councilman.
And it's from a man in Brooklyn by the name of William Smith. And it's titled, Love Thy Neighbor. And it says, every time I read or watch the news, all I hear is hate. Hate for Muslims. Hate for Mexicans on Staten Island and in Arizona. With all this hate, I'm ashamed to be an American. And even to be human. I know 9/11 was a tragedy with thousands murdered. And we should never forget. But we should remember our loved ones with love, not hate in our hearts. God bless everyone. Clearly, this man speaks for me and speak for millions of Americans across our great country. And I say to you as the leader of our great city that Muslims go with peace. And in fact, when they first meet you, the greeting is Assalamu Alikum. Peace be upon you. And that's the most important thing. And I say to you as a member of the City Council, as the only Muslim in the City Council of New York, Assalamu Alaikum.
Thank you very much, Councilman Robert Jackson. I appreciate very much. Now, I am very glad to have Deanna Betty from Common Cause. This is an alliance of about 40 to 50 faith-based and other freedom-loving organizations. So I invite her to make some comments.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Deanna Betty, Associate Director from Common Cause New York. As many of you know, Common Cause is part of a larger coalition called New York Neighbors for American Values. This organization actually at this point has over 80 organizational endorsements. Every day through our Facebook page, through our website, we're getting hundreds and more coming in. As many of you also probably know, this coalition came about, we say spontaneously, from groups, from individuals that saw what was going on in the media, saw what was being used as a political football, Park 51, saw the hateful rhetoric that was coming out of these heated debates and said, we need to come together as a group. We need to come together and lend a voice of unity. We need to come together and say that religious freedom is not selective. We cannot say that religious freedom, but not in my backyard. Religious freedom as Americans is something, our constitutional values, but more than that. It has been something and remains something that we use to define ourselves as Americans. I stand before you today not only as a woman, but also as somebody that was raised by a Jewish mother and a Catholic father. I stand before you then not only as a woman, not only as a Jew, not only as a Catholic, but also as a New Yorker and also as an American, and say to everybody watching, including my own family, that as my own identity, I am proud to stand here with all of those that you see behind me and many more of our Muslim neighbors, our community, and everybody that we welcome together in a spirit of peace and unity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diana. Now I call upon Father Lawrence Lucas, who is the Reverend from one of the Catholic church in the city. Father.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Assalamu Alikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
God bless you all. I'm here while elected officials and lawyers will concentrate on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I'm not going to deal with that because the last several administrations has thrown those out the window anyway. I want to deal with a higher Constitution, a high Bill of Rights, namely the law of God. And the law of God is against lies, it's against hypocrisy, and it's against racism. As a Catholic priest for 51 years, I was embarrassed of what took place in Staten Island when a pastor who knew his scripture and theology very well agreed to have a convent not in use be given over to the Muslims, but was overrun by his parishioners, also who claimed to be Catholic. It's too bad that the Archdiocese bowed to their wishes. Right now, I want to speak first of all about 9/11, but from the point of view of God's law. I want to point out first of all that not only Christians died in 9/11, there were Muslims and other folks who died in 9/11. The notion of sensitivity, unfortunately, in this country is based on the illusion that the lives of Americans are of far more value than anybody else. No one can lose sympathy for the roughly 3,000 people that were killed on 9/11. But I remind you that same sensitivity ought to go out to the 500,000 young people under the age of 5 who were killed in Iraq due to the embargo extradited by the United States of America. Those 5 million children under the age of 5 were as much human beings as those who died in 9/11. And after that atrocity, the destruction and the killing of over 1 million Iraqis and the so-called different names for the invasion and occupation of Iraq, they are human beings too. And where are our sensitivity towards them? We want to point out in the destruction of some masjids or mosques here, that how many hundreds of masjids and mosques are destroyed each day in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Are we as sensitive towards that as we are now? There is a story that when someone begins to change the reasons for their behavior over and over again, they're lying. And so we saw that leading up to the invasion and occupation of Iraq. First, it was for weapons of mass destruction, which most folks knew did not exist, except the brainwashed American public by the media. Then it began to that Saddam Hussein was a tyrant, and everything else you could call him. And folks suffer under the illusion that if one side is a tyrant, that means the other side is good. When it comes to terrorism, the United States government today is responsible for more terrorism than any and all other nations put together. And so again, when we have the nerve to call folks who were fighting to get a foreign army off their soil, we call them insurgents and terrorists. What would we call a foreign army occupying New York City? And what would we call those who would be struggling to get them off of our land? And so we have two different ways of looking at things. God has only one way of looking at things. We talk about, again, you cannot build here. Who right